Welcome to Smart Brown Voices, your weekly podcast featuring diverse voices from around the world, giving you insights on how others made it big in their respective fields. Now sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready to be inspired. And don't forget to use hashtag #SmartBrownVoices to share insights, moments of wisdom, and things from the show that inspire you. And now, here's your host, social media nerd and technology activist, Mr. Mike Street.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me. It's Mr. Mike Street, and welcome to episode 81 of Smart Brown Voices. Can you believe it? We're in our 80s of the episodes of the show. I have survived during this podcast. So thank you guys so much for being supportive of the show. And we've been getting a lot of email requests to be on the show. So if anyone out there who's listening wants to be a guest on the show, you have an interesting story that you want to share, send me an email at streetforce1, so STREETFORCE, the number 1, at gmail.com, because we want to hear your awesome story. And so today's guest is pretty awesome because his last name is awesome. So we have Cam F. Awesome on Smart Brown Voices today. So Cam, introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Cam F. Awesome. I'm not sure what I'm going to be when I grow up, but I'm only 28. I'm a speaker, stand-up comedian, national champion boxer, and an MC, and also a podcaster, and a man chasing a dream.
Awesome. So Cam, tell us about your story, because you have like a really interesting story and background of how you kind of went on your journey and how you've kind of ended up here to where you're at today. So give our audience really the background of who you are and how you became.
Well, I grew up in Long Island, New York, and I wasn't a very confident kid. I was raised by my grandma, so I was essentially a grandma's boy. But I thought, like, to my heart, that my grandma was the coolest person in the world. So if my grandma told me to wear something, I would wear it with confidence, and I would go to school and all the kids would make fun of me, but I didn't understand. And I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and I just stayed home with my grandma, and I played Super Nintendo, and I just gained a bunch of weight. And at about 16, after just being really socially awkward, I decided I wanted to lose some weight, and I wanted to get in better shape, and I wanted a girlfriend. But to do that, I would need to join a gym, and we grew up a little poor, so didn't have the money to join a gym, and I wasn't good at any sports because I've never played a sport before, so I couldn't join any teams. But there was a boxing recreational program about 3 miles away from my house, so I decided to start boxing, and I would go down to the gym pretty much 5 days a week just to be able to lose weight. And I had this thought that in my mind at some point I wasn't competing in boxing. I would just hit in the bag. I didn't like the idea of punching people, but I thought if I were to get shredded and ripped, I'd get a girlfriend for prom. And I ended up not getting a girlfriend for prom, went to prom with a friend, but I picked up boxing, and I decided after I made my weight goal that I would treat myself to one fight, just see what it was like. And I won that fight. And it was the first time I've ever won anything. And I realized that I'm addicted to winning. And I just kept on boxing, and I won nationals within my first 2 years of boxing. And after I won nationals, I got a phone call from a guy to ask me to move to go to Kansas City just to work out and spar with his heavyweight for a week. And I did. So I quit my job at Waffle House and went out there because they didn't really accept you taking a week off work. And I ended up falling in love with Kansas City and moving to Kansas City and just staying and pursuing boxing full time. And I had this goal of going to the Olympics for boxing. And I guess that's how it all started.
So give us a little bit about, making the team and then, in your recent kind of, you were trying to go to Rio as well and everything that kind of happened there. And how did it lead you to becoming a public speaker and the stand-up comedian?
Okay. Well, when I first, I have this weird way of thinking that I think with logic. I dispute tradition at any point that I can. I don't like to do anything because someone else has done it that way. So I look at everything in my life with logic. And I got to the boxing gym for the first time, and I would see boxers do things. And I thought about it logically. If I was a boxer, what would I do? And why would I do it? And I saw them hit the bag, and I realized they hurt in the bag as a person. The bag is supposed to like mimic a person. But if you can get a person to work out with, if you spar with that person and you put your hands down, you'll get punched in the face. If you spar with the bag's not going to hit you back. So I made sure I didn't hit the bag much. I always worked with people. I worked on my defense. I saw the speed bag, which everyone, connects with boxing, has nothing to do with boxing. I refuse to hit it. It's one of useless pieces of equipment in a boxing gym.
But it looks cool when people are using it.
And it looks so cool. But it's so loud. So anytime I go into a gym, I get the air pump for it and I deflate it. No one will hit that if I'm in a gym. That's one of my things. So I believe that way of thinking and approach of boxing made me become so good so quickly. And after my first nationals championship, I made it to the semifinals, which qualified me for the Olympic trials. And that was in 2008. And I lost the Olympic trials. I understand that. I was way over my head. I was only boxing for less than 24 months. I was just happy to be there. And after every 4 years, all of the top boxers turn professional. So instead of turning professional after 2008, I decided to stick around till 2009 because all the big names were turning pro. I was number 3 in the country. And that is what moved me up to number 1. And I continued my number 1 spot. I've been on the national team every year since 2008. And I made the Olympic trials in 2012. I dominated. I made the team, and I was traveling a lot around the country and around the world, basically 300 days a year. And a lot of people don't know this. We have to deal with USADA, United States Anti-Doping Agency. When you travel, you have to do something called your whereabout forms, where you have to tell them where you're going to be every hour on the hour for an entire day. Which, if you can think about that, just even with your schedule, with podcasts and things that you do you think that would be possible?
No, that would be crazy.
Where will you be April 17th at 3 p.m.? Yeah. And now that's what I had to deal with. And I was traveling from hotel to hotel, driving around my car, flying around the country, leaving the country. And I didn't update my whereabout forms every time because it was hard to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
If I was at home and I decided to go to a movie theater right now and I left my phone on silent and they were to call me, because they show up to your house or wherever you say you would be last, and then they call you and you have an hour to get back to them. If my phone's on silent or I'm at a basketball game and I don't have service, that's a missed test. 3 of those in 18 months is a failed test. I had 3 missed tests in 18 months, and I was suspended and kicked off the Olympic team in 2012. And that really sucked, by the way. So I couldn't box for a year. I didn't have any backup plans. I dropped out of college to pursue this dream of the Olympics, which I will tell any kid that asks me what they should do. I say chase your dreams, 100% chase your dreams. If it means throwing everything else out of the window and you want it that bad, chase your dream. If you have to drop out of college, chase your dream. But risk for reward. The reward would be being successful at your dream. The risk is losing everything. Don't go for the reward if you aren't willing to take the risk. And I didn't think anyone was going to beat me. I didn't imagine losing to a drug test that I didn't even take. So I had to deal with the risk, and I basically slept on a friend's couch for a year because I didn't have a job, and gained a lot of weight, drank a lot, was really depressed for the year. And at some point I lost a bet and I had to be a vegan for 28 days. And the diet also entailed sobriety. So I had to be sober for the first time in a long time. And that led to me losing a lot of weight and being positive again and deciding that I wanted to chase back boxing. So I symbolically killed off the old person that I used to be, which was Lenroy Cameron Thompson, who I was born as. And I changed myself. I had a rebirth, and I legally changed my name to Cam F. Awesome. And,
so what does the F stand for?
Philip, forgiveness, friendship, family.
Okay, cool.
So I wanted my last name to be Fossum, but I figured that would add some type of, just a little bit of foresight that Fossum would be inappropriate. But if I change my name to Cam and my middle name to just the letter F, my last name to Awesome, when I'm dealing with children or speaking at an event, I could be Cam Awesome. When I'm doing comedy, I could be Cam F Awesome. And so the F is just the letter F on my birth certificate.
Nice. So now you've gone through this whole transformation. Like how has your life really changed now that you've you've kind of shedded your old person, you're back chasing your dream, and now you're comedian, podcaster, everything else. Like how has everything changed now?
I thought growing up that, when someone tells you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, well, that's silly because that's not true. That's what I thought. Then I realized you can be anything you want to be. No one adds on the last part. You can be anything you want to be as long as you're willing to work harder than everyone else trying to do it as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No one adds that part on. I think people should start putting that part, because that's what I realized. And I don't do a lot of things, but anything I do 100%. So I decided I was going to do the comedy because I've stepped out of my shell. Anything that I want to do, I do. I don't let my social circle dictate my future or like anything I want to do, I do. I heard that I saw a Groupon for wakeboarding, and my friend's like, Cam, black people don't wakeboard. Well, don't, but they can. So I started wakeboarding. Anything that I want to do, I do. And if I do and I realize I don't like it, then I'll stop doing it. But I decided I want to do comedy after going to a comedy show. I found out the procedure. I started going to open mics. And my theory in life is if you can fail without being discouraged, success is inevitable. So I decided I was just going to keep doing comedy until I was good at it. And I performed a lot. And I'm finally at the point where I'm comfortable in front of performing in front of, pretty big crowds. And I started comedy soon in 2013 when I changed my name and decided to start doing anything I wanted. I just lived freely. I think everyone should live freely unless they have a dependent.
Why did you kind of pick comedy as something that you wanted to go into?
I've always been really shy and spoken, and I would get such anxiety being in front of people. Like even in high school, I would volunteer in the nurse's office instead of going into the lunchroom because there were too many people in the lunchroom, and big groups freaked me out. And I figured that would be something I can do to step out of my shell and get out of my comfort zone. And it was a little bit of a challenge.
So did you start with like an open mic night, or did you do an improv classes? Like, how did you, because I think this is an important thing for our listeners to think about, because a lot of you are entrepreneurs or, you want to start your business, and a lot of you are scared. I read your emails, I see your tweets, and a lot of you are kind of scared to step out of your comfort zone or, to start your business. And, even I, like when I started doing a lot of this stuff, my story has a lot of parallels to your stories because, I'm shy. I can be extremely introvert and will sit in a corner and play video games all day by myself. But if you want to be successful, like you need people, and you have to go talk, and you have to, make friends if you want to be successful, in business. So what were some of the things that you did to like really, get yourself into the comedy space?
First thing, you have to accept failure. If you're not willing to make yourself look like an idiot, don't try anything. If there's anything that you're going to do for the first time, you're not going to be good. There's no such thing as a natural. Like, so when I got into comedy, I was just like, all right, I may not do well here, but I'm going to do it confidently. And I've tricked myself into this level of confidence that I can do anything. And even if I don't do it well, I still make myself think I did great. So I'll do it again. And I went to open mics 4 nights a week for maybe about 6 months. And after I knew, like, I had my material down, I had everything memorized, I decided to throw my first comedy show or just get on my first comedy show. And I was here in Kansas City. And I told all of my friends that I was going to do it. I brought everyone out. I sold a bunch of tickets. It was Friday night. And I had all of my jokes written down on a piece of paper. And I threw it away just to prove to myself that I can do it. Although I had it written in my phone just in case I needed it. But they announced me and I got on stage and I was like, and I got a great applause because a lot of them was my friends. I started with, hey guys, thanks for coming out. It's always the same introduction when you're a boxer doing comedy. Coming to the stage, if you don't laugh at his jokes, he'll punch you in the face. If you heckle him, he'll beat you up, take your wife and raise your kids as his own. Come to the stage. And it's ridiculous because I have zero intentions of raising my own children. And that joke went over really well. And then I looked up and I saw what every comedian knows about that has been on a comedy stage. Because I've only performed at hole-in-the-wall bars and open mics. When you're on a comedy stage, you can't see anything because the lights are shining directly in your face. The only thing you can see is the front row. And I didn't know that. And I saw that and I panicked and I started sweating and I turned back into like 15-year-old Cam. And I just started stuttering and sweating profusely. And I pulled my phone out of my pocket just to start reading jokes out of my phone, verbatim, out of order, no punchline. And I was just bombing. And the comedians, when it's your time, they light you in the back of the room to tell you, finish up your joke. Because I couldn't see anything. I didn't know where to look for the light, so I didn't look up. So I was looking at my feet, just reading from my phone. And the place was just silence. And the comedians were afraid to take the large boxer off stage physically. So they all get to the back of the room and they're waving their cell phones to get my attention. And my friends see me embarrassing myself, so they start waving their cell phones as well. Since that's a majority of the crowd, everyone else started waving their cell phones. Most of them didn't know why. And I look up and I finally see what's happening. I'm like, it's like a rock show. I must be doing really good. And eventually got off stage. The next morning, I got text messages from friends apologizing to me for what had happened. And how bad does someone have to be for the people who paid for tickets to apologize to the performer? I was that bad. That was Friday night. Saturday night, I decided to do another show. And I figured if I fail long enough, I'll eventually become good. So my message to people about trying something new is be prepared to look like an idiot. Ignore the fact that you may look like an idiot and just do it one more time. And after that time, do it one more time.
Yeah. I mean, you have to practice your craft. You know, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell who says, you know, you have to put in, you know, your 10,000 hours of practice, you know, before you become good or become an expert at something. So, you know, if you're going to do anything, you have to, you know, like you said before, you have to put in the work.
Yeah. 10,000 hour rule is so true. There's some slight exceptions to it, but it's pretty much dead on. With speaking, I believe the 10,000 hour rule applies as well. But because I've had stage time doing comedy, I feel like some of those hours kind of shift over because it's similar to the same thing. But I'm a big fan of the 10,000 hour rule.
Awesome. So Cam, tell us about so what are you working on now, and you know, give everyone kind of you know, things they can kind of look forward from you for the next coming month, and also tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So right now where I'm at in my career, after I got to spend off the 2012 Olympic team, came back in boxing, won nationals in 2013, 14, 15, then won the Olympic trials in 2016. but lost an international competition and didn't get to go to Rio. At that point, I realized that I needed to work on a backup plan. I needed to do something outside of boxing. So I started to pursue speaking, because I would speak at inner city schools to bring kids into the free boxing programs and let them know about the importance of health. I didn't know it was a career, so I decided to start speaking to corporations about goal setting and time management. And on that, I do basically humor-based speeches, and I do comedy, and I travel around. And I've learned that you need to continue to put content out so people know who you are and build a bigger following. So I started doing blogs and vlogs, and I started doing a podcast. And 6 episodes in, Revolver Audio reached out to me and asked if I would do their sports podcast, which was a big deal. But I declined because I told them that I didn't know anything about sports. I don't watch sports. I don't have cable. It's way too difficult to keep up with. But I was like, I can do my version of a podcast, which is I interview interesting people, not even interview, just an open dialogue with interesting people with interesting stories. And some of them are crazy stories, daredevils, or different lifestyles. It's a judge-free podcast. There's going to be things in there that most people don't agree with, but I think that's important because you need to know what's not in your circle. The only way to grow is to be around people who don't agree with you, who live different lifestyles. There's a polyamorous lady I had as a guest. I had a Christian comedian. I had a very successful speaker, Carrie Phillips. It's just like different. I had 2 strippers and a comedian on to discuss the parallels between exotic dancing and entertainment and normal entertainment. Well, maybe not normal, but yes, I just do my podcast, just interesting stories from interesting people.
Awesome. And what's the name of the podcast?
Awesome Talks.
Awesome Talks. Awesome. Well, Cam, awesome. Thank you so much for really, for sharing your story. I wanted people to, to hear from your story because, you've gone through, ups and downs, but you've been able to persevere. And I think the thing that you've been able to do is figure out how to pivot, pivot your career to something new and different every time and learn from, every obstacle that's been put in front of you. So that you can continue to be successful. So thank you for sharing that story with us, because I think that's a valuable lesson for everyone who listens to this show. You may, if you're launching a store, your first store may not work out. It may take you 20 stores to figure it out, but you have to keep going and keep trying whatever it is that you're passionate about.
I like that. If your store is not working, maybe you need to offer an item or take an item out or change locations. Adaptation is a very important part of success.
Definitely. So, Cam, let us know how everyone can follow you across the web.
You can follow me at CamFAwesome, CamFAwesome, on Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not famous enough for anyone to take my handle yet, so still CamFAwesome on everything. And my website is celebritysportspeaker.com. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, being on the show. And I hope you guys learned a lot from Cam F. Awesome. Definitely follow him and support him across the web and check out his podcast. Make sure you subscribe and leave him an iTunes review, because many of you guys don't know that's how we get on the charts for iTunes. So please leave us reviews.
Yeah, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio app. You can find me, leave reviews, subscribe. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me on.
No problems. All right, guys, we'll talk to you next week. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to Smart Brown Voices with your host, Mr. Mike Street. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts, and make sure to follow us on social media. This has been a Mr. Mike Street production. Join us next time for another edition of Smart Brown Voices, and be inspired.